Hey guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be reviewing some short stories that I have recently finished. Now, I was unaware that Amazon had their own collection of short stories. I have seen occasionally when I'm scrolling on my Kindle some short stories that were published through Amazon. I just did not realize that they had like collections of stories, and they have quite a few. So today I'm going to be reviewing their Amazon original stories, The Creature Feature. So these are 6 stories. They are all horror. They all involve some sort of creature, and they are written by some pretty popular authors. So what I'm going to do is just give you guys a brief summary over each of the 6 stories, and I'm going to keep it as brief and vague as I can because these stories are quite short. They only range from like 30 to 60 pages. So I'm going to give you guys a really brief summary. I'm going to give you guys my rating, and then at the end I will let you know if this is like a collection that I would actually recommend. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm just going to go in the order that I read the story. So the first one that I read is The Pram by Joe Hill. So I have not read anything from this author yet. I do have their book, The Black Phone, and I want to say that that started off as like a short story, but I have that book. I have seen the movie, loved the movie. It's one of my favorite horror movies. And then I have another short story collection from this author. I cannot remember the name of it, but I have not read it yet. So this is actually my first introduction into their work. So in The Pram, we are following this married couple, Willie and Marianne. I believe that was her name. And Marianne has recently suffered a miscarriage, and it is of course a situation that she is really struggling to like deal with and overcome. And so Willie is also struggling, but he has tended to keep a lot of his feelings and emotions to himself because he's trying to be supportive to his wife. So one day Willie decides that he's gonna go ahead and take a walk just to kind of like clear his head, and he takes a walk to like this local grocery store. When he's in there, the owner of the store sees that Willie most likely is going to be struggling trying to take his groceries back home. So he brings Willie to the side and he tells Willie that he can use his pram. Now, I was unaware, but a pram is like the same thing as one of those like really old school baby carriages. And so Willie agrees. He takes the pram home with all of his groceries. Over the course of the next few days, some strange things begins to happen with this pram. He starts to hear some weird things, and some strange things start to happen to Willie. I ultimately gave this one 4 stars. I had a really fun time with it. There were moments where I was really creeped out. You can feel like this dread and tension building. I also even had time to feel sorry for Willie and what he was going through and the things that he was struggling with because of this miscarriage. So this was one of the longer stories. It was closer to 60 pages. But Joe Hill was able to pack so much into this short story, and I really enjoyed it. And because I gave this one 4 stars, I'm really looking forward to reading something next from him. The next story that I read is Ankle Snatcher by Grady Hendrix. Now, this is an author that I have read almost all of their books from them. I think I'm missing like one novel and like a short story from them, but I've read a majority of their stuff and I have enjoyed a majority of their work. So I didn't really have any doubt that I was going to enjoy this one. So in Ankle Snatcher, we are following this guy, Marcus. Marcus is on his first date. And so I don't even know how they got on this subject, but he starts to tell his date about his father. His father is currently serving time in prison for murdering his mother. So before his father went into prison, he had told Marcus that he didn't kill his mother, but the boogeyman under the bed killed his mother. And so the date, Marcus's date, is not really believing what, he's saying, but she kind of goes with it until she goes back to his house and some things happened. I enjoyed this story from start to finish. Like I said, there was no doubt that I would. It's very entertaining. This is one of the shorter stories, but it felt like a really complete story. However, even though I'm giving it 4 stars, I do wish that it could have been a tad bit longer. I would have actually enjoyed a full-length story about the short story because I had so many questions and I just wanted to see where it was going to go next because it kind of ended abruptly. Of course, it's gonna happen with short stories, but this is definitely a story that I wish was a little bit longer, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Grady Hendrix did not let me down with this one. So then the next one that I read is It Waits in the Woods by Josh Malerman. So this is actually an author that I have only read one other thing from them, and that was recently this year, and that was Incidents Around the House, which I thought it was fine. I am interested to pick up more from this author, but for this short story, there is this urban legend that in the woods by this bridge, there is this demon that kills people because it's looking for a new face. And so we follow Brenda. Brenda's sister Amanda has been missing for the last 3 years. No one knows what happened to her. Of course, they've done a lot of searches and no one can find not one clue about where she went. Brenda had always felt like something happened to Amanda in those woods. And so one day, Brenda decides that she's going to take all of her filming equipment and she is going to go to this bridge and look for her sister Amanda, and some stuff happens. So I gave this one 3 stars. The story was a little slower for me. It took a little bit for us to really get the story going because Josh Malerman gave us so many thoughts from our main character, Brenda, and like how she was feeling about her sister missing. And honestly, I could have did without all of that, maybe like a feeling or two from our main character, Brenda, but I was here for the demon. I wanted some more interaction with that whole situation, and I felt like this could have done more. It could have been a little bit more creepy. I think a lot could have happened, especially when you're dealing with like demons. You could have did a lot, but I'm settling on 3 stars for this one just because it moved a tad slower than the other 2 that I read starting off. The next one that I read is In Bloom by Paul Tremblay. So this is another author where I have not read anything from. I have quite a few of his stories. I do know where I want to start with this author, but I thought this was a great opportunity to get an introduction into their work. So in this one, we are following this journalist. I believe her name is Heidi, and she is looking into like some algae blooms in like her town, and she's trying to do like a story over that and how it's affecting the community. And so she ends up interviewing this guy, and this guy tells her the story of how when he was younger, when he was with his father, they actually came across some algae, and he tells this story of how he thinks that algae is related to his missing father. So that's the story. I gave this story 2 stars. It honestly did not do anything for me, and this was another one just like with the Josh Malerman story where I felt like it took a while for the story to really get going, and then by the time it got going, it ended really abruptly. I could have used a couple of more pages, maybe taken out a little bit of explanation like in the beginning, but yeah, this one was just really slow, and I wasn't creeped out by anything. It didn't give me any sort of dread. It just didn't do it for me. So unfortunately, 2 stars is what I had to settle on for this one. And it makes me nervous about going into his other books because if the short story didn't work for me, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about a full-length novel. The next one that I read is Best of Luck by Jason Mott. So this is an author that I have not heard from, but they have one book, and I'm blanking on the title right now, that has won several awards, and I think it's rated pretty highly on Goodreads. So I was kind of excited to read this one since it's from an author that is unknown to me. So in Best of Luck, we are following our main character, Will. And Will is really upset with his friend, Barry. And so Barry wakes up in the middle of the night to Will standing over him with a gun in his face. And so Will starts to tell him like this story of this farmer who has encountered nothing but bad luck. And then he starts to blame Barry, his friend, for causing him to have such an unlucky life. And then like the story kind of takes off from there. I'm being super vague with this one because I think this is like one of those ones you really need to go into it just blind. This is the only one in this short story collection that I gave 5 stars to. I was hooked from the beginning to the end of this. This, I want to say, might have been one of the shorter ones, but it just felt like a complete story. I got everything I needed wrapped up into one. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed like the creature that was featured into this one. I liked how it all tied into how Will has been so unlucky and why. It was great. This was a great story, and I am really looking forward to reading more from this author. So the last one that I read in this collection is The Big Bad by Chandler Baker. So I've only read one story from this author, and that was The Husbands, and I thought that one was fine. I enjoyed it well enough. I read that years ago, and I have not picked up anything else from this author. But after reading the story, I did pick up something else from this author. So in this one, we are following Sam, his wife Rachel, and then their 2 younger daughters. They kind of live like on a secluded farm. And so this one was kind of confusing in the beginning because I kept wondering like, where is this going? So when the story starts off, Sam keeps getting this guy by the name of Harold that keeps coming to the house trying to like rent out their like guest house for an Airbnb, and Sam was like, no, like it shouldn't have been posted on the site, like we're not trying to rent it right now. And Harold can't take a hint and he keeps coming back. Then we have Rachel, who is supposed to be going on a business trip, but she's all of a sudden starting to feel sick, and she's starting to show signs that something is not right with her. And so Sam is trying to deal with Rachel, trying to keep their 2 daughters in the dark. And then Harold decides that he's going to show up again, and this time he reveals that he is actually looking for Rachel. And I'm going to leave the story there. This kind of went in a direction that I was not expecting. At a certain point, I think you can kind of pick up, but it takes you a while to try to fit all the pieces together. I gave this one 4 stars. I liked where the story eventually went. It did start off just a tad bit slow for me, but the ending really, really made up for that. I like the daughters. They were so funny, especially the little daughter. Her name was Odie. I really liked them. I really liked how you figure out like what's going on with Rachel. And I also thought that this one was creepy as well. Like I said, after I read this one, I went ahead and picked up another book from Chandler Baker, Cutting Teeth, came out like a couple years ago, and I'm really excited. This story made me excited to read something else from her. So those are all the stories. As you can probably tell, I enjoyed a majority of them. One of them got a 2-star, another one got 3-star, but for the most part, I thought these were really entertaining, and I would highly recommend these, especially if you are already familiar with these authors' work. Then I guess you would go into it kind of knowing what to expect. But for me, this was a surprise with the majority of these authors, and I really, really had a good time with these. And because I enjoyed this creature feature so much, I do plan on trying to continue on with some of the other Amazon original stories. So that is all that I have for you guys. If you guys have read any of these stories, please let me know your thoughts down below. But I will see you guys next time. Bye.